Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Office Hours, where we assemble every single day to answer your media and tech-related production questions. Alexander Knight in Port Coquitlam, British Columbia is our reader today. Alexander, what's up first?
This one is coming in from Zach Stallsmith in Chautauqua, New York. What is the difference between AppleCare Plus and AppleCare One?
Alexander, help him out.
So AppleCare One is a subscription service. I believe you pay $20 a month. It includes all the benefits of AppleCare Plus, which includes repairs and stuff like that. But it also allows you to protect more than one device. So you can protect up to 3 devices. I believe you have to pay $5.99 extra per month for every additional device that you have. So if you already have AppleCare Plus, it's all those benefits. I can't go into them because there's too many there, plus multiple device coverage.
Yeah, it's basically a warranty extension service like many companies have. But if you are a little rough on your stuff, I found that sometimes it's very valuable to be able, because I remember, I think I broke the glass on my first iPhone and I didn't have any insurance on it. And I remember it was like 2/3 of the cost of the whole phone just to get the glass replaced. Now, this is way early in iPhone things, so I learned really quickly that with the manufacturing tolerances that Apple has, it's pretty expensive to get things fixed. So that may factor into whether or not you find these care policies worthwhile. Next question.
This one is a QR code question from Kent Curry in Castle Pines, Colorado. Can you really control your Sony camera using an Atem switcher and Middle Control Pro?
Guy Cochran's going to help you out here, Guy.
According to them, with the Pro version of their new software that they just announced this week, you can. And if you look on their site, it tells you exactly what it controls. So it's not just the normal, zoom and actually, what else would it be? Previously, I think it was just zoom. Let's see, PT, pan, tilt, zoom. But you can control focus, ISO, white balance, tint, shutter, ND filters, record, start, stop, contrast, saturation, black levels, all that. But it is in this video that if you watch it on their website or on YouTube, they actually show it working. So I haven't gotten my hands on this. I know that our friend Jonas has some of the middle things, the older version before this week when they announced this new VSCO over IP and Sony integration. But there's a lot to it. I suggest watching the video and seeing what all you could control. But it is a 3-part system. You do need the software, you need your camera, but you also need some kind of controller. And it can be the Atem, but there is a piece that they make if you want more granular buttons that are dedicated and controllable. They do make this controller that I believe is $500 or $900. So you need more pieces of the puzzle. And actually, there's one more piece. I think it would be a 4-piece solution then, because you need the APS-C R controller, and this is the box that does the translation. So you're looking at the software for 233. You need this, or it's called the APC-R Mini. This is the one that does the translation, and then you may or may not want the middle remote. So it's kind of pricey when you start digging in there. Some people like me would rather just get all Sony and just stick with an FR7, but you're also talking a lot of money when you start to get into 3 or 4 cameras. But it depends on what you're doing with it every day. If you already own an FX6 or an FX3 and you already have an RS6 and you just want to add that APC-R Mini, that's a pretty good value to just, and especially if you buy it from somewhere like B&H, where if it doesn't work for you, if you don't like the actual movements and the control and the software and all that, you could just return it.
Absolutely. Next question.
This one's from Paul Valhus in Austin, Texas. What is your impression of Portkeys LH5C on-camera monitor? The LH5C is a lightweight 5.4-inch on-camera monitor with HDMI video I/O ports and wired control.
Courtney, what do you think?
Get wired. All right. Well, I took a look at it. Oops, sorry. Feeling a little faint. There. Okay. There it is. It's a 5.2. I think my criticisms of it would be it's not 880 nits, so it's not super bright. I think it has, I don't like the way the ports are arranged. It has an HDMI input, and you normally want to do an HDMI output so you can go to a larger monitor for other people. And the inputs and outputs are on opposite sides, and they're on the side, so it's going to cause the cables to stick out the side and kind of get in the way. It has this little joystick control, besides the touch screen. I kind of like the Viltrox, which is the one I have here, which is a similar size. And this one is 1,200 nits. It's the same price, has a built-in shade, which can unclamp. And you'll notice the, I don't know if it'll focus, the inputs and outputs are on the bottom. And it has this one, and it has a place for it. Comes with an N-style battery on the back to power it. It's 1,200 nits, so it's much easier to see outdoors. It has this little control wheel on the side, similar to the joystick, I guess, on the MZ. So in case you're wearing gloves or it's cold or rainy or something, you can still control the menus here. And this one has, I think, a little more comprehensive meters and things, because you've got RGB parade, you've got false color, and all that good kind of stuff that a cameraman love. And it's a little bit brighter. And let's see, I think it's on sale at Amazon for $198. So hey, it's $2 cheaper, $1 cheaper for the Viltrox, and it comes with this lovely carrying case and a battery. So I'd kind of still think the Viltrox has it over this new Portkeys LH5C.
Why does Portkeys make me think of the Harry Potter novels? And will that transport you into your scene? If it does, then it's worth the money.
A pig, Portkeys pig. Yeah.
Next question.
This is from Roz Humphreys in Comox, British Columbia, Canada. Good morning. Any suggestions as to using Apple AirPods2 Pro using device speakers simultaneously with the AirPods?
Chris Fenwick's going to help you out here. Chris?
Roz, I have no suggestion, but I got to tell you, this is a feature I really wish was standard and normal. And I'll tell you, I love watching my Apple TV with the AirPods. My wife is a much more casual viewer and will pick up the phone or talk to her sister or, put dishes away while she's watching something. And I like just shut out the world. And I wish I could watch TV with the AirPods while other people were being more casual in the way they view. I don't know that it's possible, but if it is, please let me know.
Yeah, my AirPod Pros too. It seems like once they bond with a device, it usually shuts down that device. Now, honestly, I use them mostly with Apple devices, so maybe that's how that's programmed. They are a Bluetooth solution, but there's usually some Apple magic in between them. And I say magic advisedly. I know a lot of people have had trouble with the Bluetooth connections between Apple devices, either hijacking something else or having a little bit of difficulty figuring out how to attach and detach things when you want to, and it may be picking up the wrong piece of equipment and gear like that. But if your system is working, once they bond, I don't really know of a way to get that audio into something else along with the AirPods that I have, at least so far, not for me. Maybe Jeffrey Powers will have better suggestions. Jeffrey?
So I have, I have a soundbar upstairs that actually has Bluetooth. And of course, Apple has what's called Bluetooth sharing. So maybe that's a solution right there for you. If the device has Bluetooth, you pair it up via Bluetooth. Now, if that's coming from if you're talking like a TV speaker to AirPod, like Chris is talking with the AirPods and then the speaker, then that might not be the option there. But for the most part, if you're going from phone to two devices, then you can do the Bluetooth sharing so you can have them go back and forth.
I'm pretty certain, Jeffrey, that the Bluetooth sharing is like one phone / iPad, whatever, sharing to two sets of AirPods. I don't know that it has the distinction to be able to send it to two different brands, makers, et cetera, et cetera.
That's what
I think you're right, Chris. As I remembered, it's for two people. People want to jog together, like
you're sitting on a plane with your wife,
right? That kind of thing. I think. I haven't investigated it any more than you guys have, but if anybody knows, the chat is open. I haven't pulled it up on my second monitor yet, but when I do, maybe we'll hear something more about it. And if so, we can maybe cue you in. Next question.
This one's from Paul Valhus in Austin, Texas. What makes a camera a cinema camera? For example, the Nikon ZR, is it a cinema camera?
I'm tempted to say marketing, but I'm going to let Guy Cochran dive deeper.
Yeah, I'll take the bait if it feels like he's dangling this one in front of
Yeah.
me. I look at a camera like this, a traditional camera, and you look at like the I/O, and you say, does it have SDI, HDMI? But also the recording capability. A normal stills camera, like back when these things first started coming out, the Canon 5D, the codec that it recorded to was very minimal. It was like minimum viable product. Nowadays, when we talk about cinema cameras, we want to have raw recording, or we want to have really robust, like B-RAW or whatever the manufacturer's implementation of that they couldn't get because of Red's licensing. But now Nikon absolutely is a cinema camera because they bought Red, and so they're taking that technology and rolling it into the ZR series. So in addition to some of these things like monitoring, we want false color waveforms, the ability to output or input XLR-based audio, time code, gen lock. So a lot of this I/O that I have on the back here, I have SDI out, I have time code in and out, I have HDMI in, I have Ethernet. Well, not a cinema camera doesn't necessarily need to have Ethernet, but there's just a lot of pro features that you start as you climb up the ladder to have this functionality that you start to fall in love with, being able to control things and see things, especially when people want it now. But you don't have to buy a lot of these cameras. You can rent them. I mean, there's a lot of people have said, marry the glass. So don't just buy the camera because you're going to outgrow it in a couple of years. So marry the glass, but don't fall in love with the camera.
Yeah, just date the camera, marry the glass. Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, this looks like a good camera for the budding film student. If you're just going to USC or UCLA and you want to get your hands wet and shooting something that could be used as a film, you might have something like this. This is a $2,500 camera with a kit lens with a full frame sensor. And of course, since Nikon bought Red, it'll shoot Red RAW, and it's a full frame sensor. But if you compare it to the other Red cameras out there, the Komodo X, the V Raptor, here's one important difference between the ZR, which is here on the left. It has good resolution, 6K, 60p. Right down here, global shutter, no. All the others have global shutter, which is kind of important in a camera, especially if you're going to be shooting any kind of action footage, stuff like that. You kind of want to have a global shutter. If you're going to use it for 3D, that kind of stuff. But, it's a good entry-level camera, I guess. And I'm not familiar with this Z mount, whether it can be adapted to PL mount lenses or not, so that you could use more professional lenses. But, it comes with a kit lens for $2,500. It could get you started for a lot cheaper than the $10,000 to $12,000 that most of the other cinema cameras will start at.
Chris Fenwick?
Best comment ever in the chat from Brian Taylor. He says, rest assured that with a cinema camera, in quotes, you still maintain the ability to shoot terrible footage. It's marketing and it's crap and it's just dumb. It's just I hate, but it's like anything that used to be called professional. You knew it wasn't. If it says professional, it's not.
I will say the lines have blurred a lot since once upon a time, cinema cameras were designed for filmmaking and other cameras were designed for video or home use. But boy, things have changed a lot. Alexander, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I was just going to build on that, what everyone said. In addition to the more professional locking lens mount like PL and the I/O stuff that's been talked about, like SDI, XLR, Gen Lock, all that sort of stuff. Obviously, the lines are blurring. There are people now that have shot on films on much less expensive cameras like the Sony FX3. Now, the FX3, granted, is marketed as a cinema camera, full frame, and the creator was shot on it, but it still lacks professional features that you would expect a cinema camera to have. It only has HDMI out, no SDI or anything like that. Also, it still has a stills camera body format, which is really weird. And again, when we're talking about cinema cameras, typically the first thing that comes to mind is the form factor is a much more smaller box style camera that allows you to really build a rig around it. Because we're not shooting photos or stills with that, so it doesn't need to have that kind of hand grip because it's going to you're going to put a cage around it. It's going to go in a big tripod, that kind of thing, or it's going to go into some kind of big professional gimbal system for doing dolly shots and all that sort of stuff. So those are the things that you look for. Active cooling systems as well. A lot of mirrorless cameras, not all, but a lot of them do not have active cooling systems. So, try to record for more than 30 minutes and not have that camera overheat. I encourage you to try that. But the cinema cameras from Sony do have cooling in it. Even the FX30 has a fan inside so that it can prevent that kind of stuff. Those are all features that you got to think about if you're going to be shooting, especially in tough environments where you're going to be shooting hours and hours and hours every day. You cannot have a camera fail like that. Also, the dual media slot featured so that you have redundancy, the ability to record at specific higher RAW formats as well, which take up massive amounts of storage, that kind of stuff when you're working with 12-bit, 16-bit, all this stuff. You get huge files. So those are all things to think about.
Yeah, these are all things in the modern era. I think 100% accuracy on everything we've talked about. Once upon a time, to my mind, true cinema cameras would require a camera crew to operate. You had people like the focus puller and dolly grips and people whose specific jobs were to attend the camera operator or the cinematography crew, and they would work together to accomplish shots. Nowadays, they call things cinema cameras that are designed for one person to operate. And I don't think that's irrational, because the capability of the smaller, easier to operate cameras has certainly pushed against what old film type cameras used to be able to accomplish for people. And they're often so much smaller and easier to use that it opens up, quote, filmmaking. Very few use film these days, but the idea of making cinematic movies to way more people. Courtney, you wanted to get onto this?
Yeah, I was just going to say this could also be used, if you're using RED cameras on a production, the higher end RED cameras, this might be able to be thrown in there as a crash cam or, something to get a unique point of view. It doesn't have the contrast range. It's only 12-bit versus a 16-bit for the other, the dynamic range. So it's only about 15 stops as opposed to 17 stops for the higher end RED cameras. So you're not going to get, it may not match the RED, if you're shooting in RED RAW, it may not match the other cameras, but it's probably good for a quick cutaway in a crash camera. And it's small, lightweight, weighs 1/4 what the bigger Komodos weigh and the V-Raptors. So you could stick it in the back of a car doing stunts and put it in harm's way without fear of killing something that cost $10,000.
Thanks for the question, Paul. Next question.
This one's from Funsak Dorji, and the question is, hi panelists, I have H2R graphics and have used a mini PC with 3 HDMI to do key and fill. What do I need to do key and fill from a Mac Mini M4?
And we're going right back to Alexander Knight for the answer. Alexander?
So if you're running H2R on a Windows PC and you need, if what you're trying to do is get graphics fed from the Mac Mini, a lot of people use Keynote, because the cool thing about Keynote is that it supports alpha channels. So if you're just going to connect it to another device that's running H2R, there's a way to do that. So usually Keynote is what people use. I don't know what other applications people are using on a Mac. That's the only one that I know of that people seem to use for this kind of thing.
Next question.
Jim Brooks in New York asks, this might be off topic, but I'm looking for a new 50-inch TV. Picture quality, a must. Any suggestions? Budget, $800. Thanks.
$800 US. What would you go for, Alexander?
Yeah, so picture quality these days, a lot of TVs, they vary, but you can get a pretty good looking TV for under $1,000 these days. And I'll put an asterisk there at the end. One of the things that you want to look at, now there's two brands I'm going to suggest you take a look at. One is Vizio. I actually have an older Vizio TV, which is an LCD screen TV, LED. I'm pretty happy with. And also Hisense. Those are two budget brands that have made some pretty good TVs. And in fact, these days you can get a bigger one. If you want a 65, you can probably get one for that price. Now, a couple things to look out for if you're going to be putting this in your home theater. You're going to want to make sure that you get one that supports both Dolby Vision and HDR10, those two different high dynamic range standards. I would avoid Samsung mainly because they don't want to pay the licensing and they won't support support Dolby Vision. So if you look at those two brands, they're pretty good, and you'll want to calibrate those TVs out of the box. Just make sure that they also have local dimming array as well. So you want those different zones of the TV, of the LED panel, that can be turned off so you get those inky blacks as much as possible on an LED TV, without going to OLED, because OLED's going to really blow your budget out of the water here, and you're not going to be able to find a good LG OLED TV at this price point. You might be able to, maybe at 50-inch, but it's pretty hard. Some of the higher-end LGs and the Sony stuff get pretty expensive still for that kind of thing, so I would have a look at that. And also, make sure you go to rtings.com, look up the model. Before you actually purchase it, look at the model on Rtings, because oftentimes they will post a calibration guide. So make sure they have a color calibration guide so you can check what are the optimal settings to turn off all the advanced processing stuff that you don't want, because that just messes with motion blur and all that sort of stuff.
Courtney Gooden. Oops.
Sorry, my unmute didn't work. The QLED, look for a QLED, and 50-inch is kind of a tough. It used to be, the sweet spot. Now 55 is a sweet spot for lower priced panels these days, because they make more 55s than anything else. So they're commodity price for about $700. These TCL QLEDs with a mini LED. With a mini LED with local area contrast brightening gives you a really good high contrast image. So for under $700, here's a 55-inch TCL. This comes with the, of course, Google TV operating system. These days, or you can get a Samsung probably for under $800, a QLED with mini LEDs for around that price, and a 55. 55 is kind of the sweet spot, or 65 now. And it's moving. 55 used to be the cheap point. Now it's moving to 65, because now I think they're making more 65s than anything else. And you can get them from anywhere from $400 for a 4K up to $24,000. Yeah. Depending on whether you're
bit of a range there.
Thinway, like to pay $25,000.
400 versus
that's 116 inches. It's not 55, but it's 116. It's available at Best Buy, and it's only $25,000. So I don't know why we're all not buying these.
Yeah. Put one outside by the pool. Invite the kids in the neighborhood. Thanks for the question, Jim. Next question.
I was just going to say, I would veer. I forgot to say, I would veer away from Vizio. Vizio was bought by Target, and they just
not known for their electronics expertise.
And they're using it as a marketing tool. And like, I hooked my Vizio. They downloaded, after Target bought them, they upgraded the operating system. And I had a Vizio, and now I can't even directly tune to the channels on an antenna on it anymore. It has to serve you have to use their app to go to a local channel on the tuner, and it serves you a local ads and stuff. It's just
oh man, the Trojan horse approach. We're selling you a TV.
Vizio,
really, we're selling you a subscription service. The TV is just the medium for it. The times we live in. Next question.
From Tony Mobley in Noonan, Georgia, USA. How do you get regular people to move to a webcam from built-in computer camera? And I'm a little frustrated.
And Jeffrey Powers is going to help us out here. Jeffrey?
That's the age-old question. I remember one time we were doing a show and we told them we need you to be in a seat on a table and with a webcam, and the person showed up in a bed with their laptop on their lap. So it was always bouncing around, and it was a show that just never aired because of the fact that he didn't follow the directions. So the problem is that people don't want to take a webcam with them. They don't want to have one set up on their desk. If they do have one set up on their desk, it's usually on top of a monitor, and then you get the angel look. So it gets frustrating. Absolutely, Tony. So unfortunately, unless you can control the directive, and like, for instance, sending them a webcam and telling them they have to use this specific webcam and they have to set it up this way, then you're just going to get what you get, especially if you're just trying to get people to come on your show.
Chris?
You could also use the Alex Lindsay method of guilt and shame. Just make people. I really think it's important that all your behind the scenes, backstage tech crew look and sound as good as you expect your talent to look and sound. Like there's nothing worse than, you log into to a show and like the backstage people, and I'm talking to you, JJ, they're like, sitting like this and they're like, hey, yeah, thanks for joining the show. Yeah, I'm going to put you on the stage now. Like, come on. And JJ's not that bad, but he's going to start. He's going to start yelling in my ear here in a second.
Watch out, he's bigger than you too.
I think you should set an example. You set an example with everybody on your crew, and then you go, like eventually people see. Even little kids know that when you go to school, if you're not dressed well, everybody's going to make fun of you, and that's what we need. We need more. We need to make fun of people. We need to make them feel bad.
You want us to become a mockocracy. Is that even a word? Courtney Gooden, save us from this madness.
Yeah, I have the same problem. I talked to my sister over Zoom, and it's the Kilroy was here, just a little head peeking up above the bottom of the frame. And anytime you put the camera in the top, she has an all-in-one, so it's a big screen. And with a screen and the camera in the same position, people adjust the screen so that like the reflection of the lamp behind them isn't in the middle of the screen. And to do that, then it makes the camera be, misframed. So you need to have a camera where you can frame it separately from the angle of the screen. And the same thing is true of laptops. You adjust the laptop so it's at the optimum viewing angle, and now you're, off the bottom or off the top of the screen. So you can't adjust the framing separately from the angle of the screen. So you need to convince them that if they like to adjust their screen to a comfortable level, they're going to need a camera that's on a separate adjustment.
Hey, Jeffrey, is that what you meant by the angel view? I remember you used that term. I hadn't heard it before. Is that the laptop?
Yeah, angel view is pointing down at you and
slightly down shot.
And then I don't remember what I don't want to call it double view, but it points
the horror
up.
movie, like lighting them from underneath. Anyway,
if you're vlogging, then you always want to be very aware of that, because if the camera is looking down at you, it's also called peasant mode, because if it's looking down at you and you're trying to convey something, and it kind of looks like
authority.
You're looking up to him, looking down to him type thing. Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. Alexander, dive in.
I'm surprised that you've gotten any pushback, because this just seems like not a big lift to plug in a USB camera. It's really simple. You take that USB cable, you insert it into the slot, and you have picture. It's not difficult. I'm curious, Tony, what the pushback is. If you're in the chat, let us know.
I think it's a lot more difficult than you're giving credit to, Alexander. I think that this is a problem with this group. The collective experience and years and knowledge of the people in this group is far superior than the average person. And there are literally people that can't pull this off. Not to mention, I deal with companies whose computers are so locked down that they can't plug anything USB into their computer. They can't plug a memory stick. They can't, especially in the financial world, there's a lot of regulations about what they can and can't share and what they can and can't do. And it just can't be done. It can't be done. And I will tell you, off the record, because nobody's listening, there have been many times when we go, hey, do you have your own personal MacBook? Yeah, go get that. And we just tell them, just like, nobody's going to know. Nobody's going to know. Just go get your personal computer.
I do have to admit, sometimes you plug in something like a USB camera and something like Photo Booth will auto launch. You're going, how do I get away from Photo Booth to get something else? So these are all little things. Next question.
Jason Robertshaw in Sarasota, Florida asks, what is this for? The new Rødecaster Video S for $499. Anyone on the panel planning to purchase one?
Guy Cochran, can you help us out here? What is this beast?
Yeah, so a couple months ago, they came out with an $1,199 version of this, and now it's a $499 version, and it packs a lot of punch in there. It's not just the HDMI in that you would see on an Atem Mini. These can actually be NDI as well. So they bought Mackie, and Mackie has an NDI audio mixer. So some of the things, these powers of the lineup that they've bought. So like AFX is another plug-in manufacturer that they bought, a hardware manufacturer. And so some of that integration that you saw in the earlier Rødecasters are now in here. It's not for me, but for the right person, especially if you need UVC input. So like if you wanted to plug in one of those Insta360s, you probably wouldn't get any control, but at least you'd get an image inside of it. So for a small church or somebody's small corporate video, that would be a good, what's Chris doing? Chris is like being distracting over there.
He's just distracting us. Let's go to Courtney Gooden. If Chris wants to, Chris is after Courtney. So Chris will be able to weigh in on this. Did you have anything else that you wanted to finish up, Guy? No, he's done. All right. Moving on to Courtney Gooden, temporarily.
Yeah. I thought it, when they came out with the original one that had 4 HDMI inputs, that was $1,200. I thought it was great. It did a lot of stuff that the Atems wouldn't do, and its arrangement of buttons had a lot less buttons on it, but it still had as much control. And so it looked great on paper. I never tried one because it was $1,200 as compared to, $400 for the Atem Minis Pros. But so this one, they just said, okay, we can't compete in that price range. So we need to have a cheaper version to compete with Atem Mini Pro. So they cut off 1/4 of the inputs and half of the outputs. So this one only has 2. The original had 2 HDMI outs. This one only has 1. It has 1 USB input, all can be audio or video, and 3 HDMI inputs instead of 4. So they just kind of shortened it up, carved it down, and saved some money. It has the same processor in it and the same control firmware. So it should perform like the bigger brother, but with less inputs and less outputs. And I'm not sure whether it has analog, has a pair of combo XLR 1/4 inch in. So it's got good audio input. So that's a good feature that you don't have on the Atems.
Chris Fenwick.
I just want to say, Jason, I love the dismissive nature of your question. What is this for? It's just like you just want to walk around NAB and go, what is this for? One year with Jonas, we were walking around NAB, and every booth I went to, I said, excuse me, does this work with my Stream Deck? It was fun.
Jeffrey Powers.
It's a nice device, and it's perfect for probably somebody that's doing the vlog or whatnot. The one thing that it is missing, and I think the other Rødecasters don't have it as well, is some sort of web portal. Like for instance, with the Magewell Mini Director ones, you can actually go to a web page and control the device from there. With a vMix, you can go to another computer and you can set it up so you can control it from there. That way, you don't have to have hardware on your desk. But Rødecaster wants it to be in the center of attention, so it's always going to be on somebody's desk somewhere in the video, so they can actually get to the buttons from there. So, and I'm not sure if that can also connect up to Stream Deck, but the whole point is that that's the one thing that I really miss from coming from Rødecaster. I do like the fact that they bought Mackie and they're going in a good direction that way. And I really hope I would actually use it on my desktop if I wanted to show that type of show where I expose all the hardware that I use.
Hey, don't forget, this entire show is operated by your questions. If you haven't put questions in, if you don't know how, it's really easy. You just go to officehours.global/join. You have to fill out a couple of little things just so we know who you are. And then you get the magic of being able to be in the Q&A. And this is an ongoing discussion that happens during our show every day. And there's a lot of really useful information there. People talk about the same questions we're talking about. They add additional details, links, and things that you can get into and figure out even more about the stuff we're talking about. So that's officehours.global/join. And You can even vote on the questions so that the questions that you're most interested in move closer to the top of the list and we get to quicker and spend more time on them. officehours.global/join. Next question.
Craig Kadoki in Toronto, Canada asks, with the GLiNet Comet, is it better to set it up with a GLi app or use Tailscale? What are the differences?
Oh dear, I'm afraid this is one of those things where nobody raised their hand on it this morning, which means that we may not know enough about the GLiNet Comet to have an opinion, at least those of us who are on the panel today. You know, our panel rotates every day, so that's not going to necessarily be true other days. And in fact, for things like Tailscale, there's a lot of discussion of those on our Friday show, more networky, more behind-the-scenes circuitry kind of stuff tends to be a little more active on the Friday show. So you might give that a chance. Come back tomorrow and see if that rolls. I'm looking in. This is not a QR code question. Our QR code questions are persistent, and that would have stayed over to tomorrow, so this one is not. But Guy Cochran has just raised his hand. So, Guy, do you know something about this?
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to stay away from this one just because it is a little more techie than my networking skills go. But I do have a Comet, and I do operate it via Tailscale. And it was simple to set up with the standard installation. So I have one sitting on a PC that others can remote into, and it's amazing for under $100. I don't have the PoE version. I have the first generation that came out, that anybody could come in even with a 4K monitor and be able to get this kind of splash top-like access for no monthly recurring fee. The downside is that if you install it with the version that's built into the software, you don't have as much control. So if their server that talks to Tailscale goes down, because they basically do it for you. They're still using Tailscale on the back end. You just don't have as much control. So if you want to control your nodes and see all the traffic and everything, then fire up your own Tailscale, or better yet, use some other kind of hardware VPN to get all the control. But it's amazing. I highly recommend these KVMs for people that need to remotely access their machines and don't want to have to pay for it, especially if you add in, there's a little finger bot that can restart a computer, or there's if you have a full-size desktop machine, you can put the card inside of the computer and it can ATX in an ATX build type computer that has the ability to restart with this little PCIe card. So yeah, to answer your question, it's basically which do you prefer, more ease of use or control?
You know, and I was just talking about how the chat in the show that goes parallel to this is so useful, and there's a bunch of chat about this. JJ McKenna noted use Tailscale only. David Brady said Rødecaster Video has a companion module. The GLi Comet JJ came back with backend is not suggested unless you're using GLi at your head end. And cloud export of data is only as secure as the control you have out of the back end, which in this case, you don't have access to the good cloud XYZ backend they host. So as you can see, there's a lot of chatter during the show that adds additional information to what we talk about on the air. That's why we always kind of are supporting, get into the family here and get into the chat, and you'll learn even more, we hope, than you're already doing by getting your questions answered. Next question.
This one's from Funsak Dorji. When I stream to Restream from an Atem Mini Extreme, it is glitchy. When I use a Kiloview G2 Encoder to stream to Restream, it works fine. What could be the reason? Jeffrey Power is going to start us off here. Jeffrey?
There's several different reasons to pinpoint one is not going to be possible. It could be hardware, it could be cables, it could be the internet connection that goes, because you're using two different types of internet connections if you're using the Kiloview. But it's also could be where you're sending that to Restream. The one cool thing about Restream is you can actually change the location. Like for instance, if I'm having problems with the Chicago Restream node, I will move to the Dallas Restream node, and that could clean up and help out with some of the connections there. Also, make sure that all your frame rates and resolutions are matching to what you're trying to stream to, what's going to Restream. Of course, with the Atem Minis, you cannot go past 1080, so sending that at 1080 to Restream is perfect. But if you try to send a 4K to Restream, you might run into some problems.
Don't forget, it's Thursday, which means tonight the Rundown. David Paskin hosts a panel that takes a deep dive into the why behind the latest tech. I don't know if you caught it on Tuesday, but I spent our Tuesday evening show talking to David Paskin, had a fabulous time. We chatted a little bit about AI and machine learning and what's going to be happening in the world there. So that's probably up on the website as well. Oh, I didn't realize they had another hand raised. Oh, had two other hands raised. Alexander Knight, dive into that, and then Guy.
As somebody who uses an Atem Mini Extreme, I have to say, and I've tried streaming on that, the networking stack inside that hardware is just awful. I love Blackmagic as a company. I think they make a lot of great products. I don't think the streaming aspect on their devices is reliable. First of all, you have no control over the settings as far as like the granular settings, whether or not you can stream via CBR, constant bit rate. It's variable bit rate. You have no control over that. And it's just inexplicably unreliable. It doesn't matter how good your networking infrastructure is. It doesn't matter how much bandwidth. It will just sometimes the cache will just fill up and it will stop working. And this has been proven. In fact, actually, Doug Johnson Productions did a great YouTube video, I think a year or two ago, where you can see him simulating different network environments, and you can see just how unstable the Atem streaming products are on a network when compared to other products in the industry. Even OBS I would trust more than a Blackmagic camera switcher for live streaming. So that's been my experience. I know I'm not the only one that has had that experience.
Guy Cochran.
Yeah, I have both these devices, and I don't use the Atem Mini Extreme any longer after being burned by it. But I do operate a Facebook group with 65,000 people in it, this one here. And if you go to this group, this question's been answered a few times. And one of the things that somebody found is that if you give your Atem Mini a not DHCP, but you give it an actual static IP, and even if you go back to DHCP, but you take out the slash at the end of the address, that it cleans it up for some odd reason. And this lady that's a networking professional for like 20 years has said, I've talked to Blackmagic about this over and over and they won't listen. So there's ways of going into the XML too to adjust the bitrate if you do find that you're saturating your line. But a lot of people have, especially houses of worship, I feel so sorry for them because their stream have gone down with this cache full error. And it is something as simple as changing it from a DHCP address to a static. That's insane that they haven't fixed it by now. But I just don't. I've grown to just not trust it. I've had so many issues, and I have other hardware options, and a Kiloview is a great little encoder to get you over to Restream.
It's always tough to find a problem that could be fixed with a sticker. Don't do it this way, do it that way. Next question.
This one's from Craig Kadoki in Toronto, Canada, talking about new TVs. One thing we haven't talked about for a while is the image calibration in the Apple TV. How many people are using this feature?
Alexander Knight, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, so this is a software-based feature that they introduced a while ago, and I have tested it. It works pretty well, actually. So basically what you do is you take your iPhone, and the Apple TV will put an image up on the screen. You put your iPhone up to it. It uses the camera basically to it in effect creates like a LUT basically for your TV to color correct it, and it works pretty well. I still prefer to calibrate my TVs manually. Again, I mentioned this earlier at the top of the hour, but I usually go to artings.com and look up the model of my TV because other smarter people with actual better environments and calibration tools have done the calibration work for you. So just plugging in those values and knowing what settings to turn off are usually better. But in a pinch, if you don't want to spend the time to do that, it works really well and it's fast.
Courtney Gooden?
However, it does require an iPhone with 14.5 OS on it or later, and Face ID. So if you have an older iPhone, it ain't gonna work. Plus, I don't have it because I don't have an iPhone or an Apple TV. But I wondered if you have to make sure that you set your TV, because most modern TVs have come in the auto mode, where it'll automatically adjust frame interpolation, contrast, color balance for face. It'll automatically detect faces and adjust color balances for faces and things like that. So there's all these kind of automated tools that I know they're built into the Samsungs and most of the other higher end televisions these days. So I'm wondering, I guess you have to put it in manual control mode and turn off all those auto features if you're going to let the Apple TV make the adjustments to the HDMI signal coming in, so that the television doesn't undo all of your auto all of your settings using your phone with its automatic mode.
Next question.
What do you think about, this is Tommy Shantz in St. Paul, Minnesota asking, what do you think about the Yamaha-Roland collaboration with the DM3 and V160 HD integration? Can you see this moving some folks from Blackmagic?
Alexander Knight's going to weigh in on this one. Alexander?
It's cool. I did take a look at this. Basically, what they've done with the new firmware is that the DM3 can control certain functionality of the V160 HD little compact camera switchers, but I don't think this is a compelling feature that's going to, if you're already well entrenched in the Blackmagic ecosystem, I don't think this would really compel you. The V160 HD is a really awesome camera switcher. I think the build quality is much better than the Blackmagic stuff, and it has some really cool features, but I don't think it's going to really move somebody. If you're already in the Roland ecosystem, it's really cool. A lot of people that own Roland products usually own more than one Roland product. I actually have two DM3 consoles right here, actually, and they're really awesome. So they're good products if you want to go for that type of ecosystem.
Next question.
Aaron Cody in St. Louis, Missouri asked, with the growing prevalence of AI and ML, that's artificial intelligence and machine learning, will hardware manufacturers be more or less incentivized to fully characterize and publicly document their products? Is it more valuable that AI can answer questions about your widget, or that it can't unless you pay?
Courtney Gooden, what's your thought?
Well, I think all manufacturers publish the specifications in all of their websites and that they can. It's publicly, all of that information is usually publicly accessible, which means the web crawlers for the AI should be able to find it and incorporate it into their language learning module. I think I don't think anybody's trying to actually hide the specifications in. Now, also, the large LLMs use Reddit and some of the other forums to take a look at problems that people had and quirks of a particular maker model of something that may not be knowable from the manufacturer's information that they publish on it. So little quirks and bugs and that kind of stuff you're going to get from Reddit. So I don't think there's any reason for them to hide anything or request money from the AI LLM, models for including their information in the training. So I don't think they have anything to gain by hiding that information. So they have everything to gain by publishing it.
Jeffrey Powers.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's going to be actually the opposite. You're going to see a whole bunch of documentation because it's going to be easier to make that documentation because somebody could talk into a recorder and then have AI put it into a technical document or and just basically bring notes together and then publish that so AI can then catalog it. So if I go on my phone, we did this yesterday because we were working on the X32 Live and I needed to do some routing. And I went up to ChatGPT and I said, how do we route this way? And it gave me step-by-step instructions, which is great. And it's sometimes better than YouTube tutorials because there were two YouTube tutorials that I was watching, and one was doing it one way, which is not the way that we really wanted the routing to happen. And then the other was a little bit closer to what we were doing, but it still wasn't on where it is. So I could actually go into ChatGPT and get more specific instructions. And that means that they don't have to have staff a support area to get these answers, and you can get the support right at the tip of your fingers without having to wait for somebody to come online.
Guy Cochran?
Yeah, it's wonderful when manufacturers get it and they don't want to tie up their phones with unnecessary tech support calls. For those that know how to use AI and know how to jump on a ChatGPT or go across Grok and Gemini and Claude and put the same question in there to get your answer. These guides, especially if it's like SDKs or API information, like we were in the Zoom graphics toolkit meeting and Andy was teaching us some of the ins and outs. And he said, well, just feed this into ChatGPT and it'll kick out your HTML code. And it was like an aha moment that companies are starting to do this. Just say, hey, just feed it into here, and if you want that background red with a point size of 14 point text italicized, then just tell it that, and it'll create it for you in ChatGPT. So I think it's ultra valuable to be able to customize things, especially. The other day, I had a friend that was asking me this really complicated question about vMix and how to update the titles, and I just fed his exact phrase into Gemini, ChatGPT, and Claude, and then pasted back the response, and he was just blown away that he couldn't figure it out. But it was still wrong. Like he was like, it sent me down the right path, but it was still wrong. So by not feeding these things all the documentation, you're actually doing your users a disservice, because now it doesn't know how to crawl everything. And I think it was Courtney that was saying that Reddit can be crawled. Reddit's blocking the gates now. So at one point, the LLMs used to be able to crawl that. It is not common crawl. And if you use something like Comet, Perplexity's Comet, or if you're using ChatGPT's Atlas, and you're on that page, then you could scrape that page. But the LLMs are not allowed to go into YouTube. They're not supposed to. I mean, they call it the original sin. They did go in there and scrape a bunch of videos and text and audio, but that's a whole different conversation. But the going forward, I would just love to see what they call robots text. There's a new one called LLM. So when the LLM visits the website, it knows exactly what directory that website owner wants that to go and ingest. So manufacturers, if they're smart, they're going to get up to date on this and start saying, LLMs, go here, go grab all this information, index it, and cater it to your users as they have their inquiries.
Still early days, so much developing, so much getting better, and so many people trying to figure out how to make this work the best it can. Next question.
Adi Kokendorfer in Vieira, Florida, USA asks, for those with Restream IO Pro accounts, double-ended recording is now in beta. You can record on the subject's device, and it will upload in progress to the Restream.io servers and a local copy.
Alexander, dive in.
That's cool. I didn't even know that they were beta testing this functionality. Andy, you're going to have to test it and report back and let us know how reliable it is. I think it's great that we have alternatives to other services. And the names are escaping me. There's what's the other one? Is it Riverside.fm? Yeah, it's good to have an alternative to Riverside FM.
Jeffrey Powers, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a great little thing. I was taking a look at it the other day, and it's. The only concern I always have is you're caching it onto somebody's laptop. You don't know what the laptop is. You don't know what their bandwidth is. You don't know. Those problems can come into play. So I'll definitely be testing it within the next week.
Let us know how it works out. Next question.
Roz Humphreys in Comox, British Columbia asks, some interesting ideas with this couple linked below, but I'm still looking to do some sound reduction in studio build for a small space. Any other ideas and thoughts? And there's a YouTube link there.
Is it I don't know what it is. Courtney Gooden, do you know what it is?
I took a look at the video, and it's interesting. It's this couple that has apparently they built this streaming studio for influencers in their basement, as you can see, kind of what the setup is here. And they go over how to use this one area and create 5 different sets that they can roll in and roll out different backgrounds behind them, and hang different. Bring in hanging lamps and adjustable height desk, and they have. Luckily for them, they're in the basement. They have these overhead beams they can clamp stuff to, although you can see there are cinder block walls in here on a concrete floor. So for sound treatment, I don't know how much. I didn't get a chance to watch the whole video to see what they're doing for sound treatment. Luckily, overhead has insulation and beams in it to break up the sound somewhat. But I would put some carpet on the floor for sound treatment, and I would hang something over these cinder block walls, whether it be furniture pads or some type of sound absorbent foam, maybe some mattress pads with the dimpled surface that you can get from mattress toppers. That I think those are great because they are flame retardant because they have to be for bedding. And you can hang them up, and they're not too expensive, much cheaper than the sound foam, sonofoam, the stuff that's designed for really more esoteric looking stuff. for sound dampening. The other thing to keep in mind if you're doing a small space, especially in a basement, is to look for other things that are going to create noise. And a lot of times people put something in the basement if they have kids. They don't realize if the kids are playing upstairs, you're going to hear them clomping around on the floor above your head. So you're going to have some kind of sound dampening there, or you're going to have to tie the kids up and put them upstairs outside to keep them from making noise. Also, HVAC equipment a lot of times is in basements. So you'll have forced air furnaces, things like that can come on at the most inopportune moments. So you have to be able to control that stuff to keep it off while you're recording. Otherwise, you could be interrupted with sounds that you don't want to hear.
Not sure there's a giant delta between running kids and elephants, at least in my experience. Guy Cochran.
Yeah, just do a test recording in there and see what the microphones are picking up, because some of it you may be able to get away with in post, but of course the idea is to use things like this or a room within a room. So the ones that I have behind me are made by a company called Acoustic, and you could go to their website and take a look at all the different panels that they have. And there's ones like this SoundCloud thing that's like a diffuser that'll break it up. But some of these are just high frequency, so what frequency is it that's coming in? Is it a low frequency? Because that might be something where you need to double stud your walls or make it so that the transmission of that low energy doesn't carry across solid objects and enter into your microphone capsules. But some of it could be cleaned up in post. I'm really amazed at what Adobe Podcast can do. In my old building, we had a bunch of these things called the Nimbus Clouds, and they're $469 for a 2-pack, and I had about 20 of these. And when I walked into the room initially of the building and I just clapped my hands, the echo was insane. And we had a bunch of people talking in this office, and we'd shoot in there every once in a while. So I put in 20 of these Nimbus Clouds. And the amazing difference when you clapped your hand, it soaked up so much because it would hit we suspended them by wire. So you would get the advantage of sounds coming from the bottom, and then also the ones that would reflect from the concrete ceiling back down would also get absorbed. So think about when I watched that video that you put up, Roz, I noticed that they didn't have anything up top. So go to these different websites, Acoustic, Prime Acoustic, and F-Zorb is the other one that I really like. These F-Zorb units. You can also see that they do like pickleball courts and things like that, where there's a lot of slap because of all the hard surfaces. But study some of these different manufacturers, and you'll see how they're used in even things like swimming pools and places that you wouldn't think that they would have acoustics, but they're there. So cruise around their site. I'll put a link in the chat.
Thank you all very much. Hey, if you value what we do here, there are a few ways you can help. You can like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's free and easy. Volunteer at Office Hours Global if you'd like to get in, meet some of the people who put on this whole program, and make a lot of friends, I think, in the process. Or if you'd like, you can simply donate. officehours.global/donate. We are a 501c3. Let's see if we can get another question or two in. Next question.
This one's from Paul Vall, who's in Austin, Texas. The Audio Technica AT4050 is way more expensive than the AT4040. Is it worth it?
I'm also going to suggest that Wednesday is our sound crew, and we have a lot of people who do this all the time, but we also have people here who do work in sound. So Alexander Knight's going to start us off. Alexander?
Yeah, so Paul, you need to tell us what is the use case. So there are some differences. Obviously, the 4050 is a multi-pattern mic. The 4040 is a fixed cardioid pattern. So if you only will ever need a unidirectional microphone, then the 4040 might be the better choice for you. However, if you want something that's more flexible, where you need to use it, for example, let's say in a music production environment, maybe you want a room mic to capture the sound of a drum kit, you might want a multi-pattern microphone where you can stick it into Omni, for example. Figure 8 is very, very useful when you put it into that mode, because that means that the microphone will pick up sound from both the front and the back of that capsule. So you can do all sorts of things with that. You could have two singers, one on each side, singing into that microphone. You could, if you had different microphones, you could actually start to do mid-side recording as well. So look up mid-side recording. So it gives you a lot more flexibility. So you really need to tell us how you're going to use this. There are some differences, I think, sonically with the capsules. I'm not certain I don't think the capsules are totally identical either. So that's another thing to consider.
Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, I think Alexander hit all the high points there. The main difference in expense is multi-pattern. Like the Stellar X2 that I'm using now is a single pattern. It sounds like a U87 or a U47, U67 Neumann. That's what it's modeled after, but it's not multi-pattern, whereas the Neumanns are, and that's why they're, besides the prestige of their name, that's why they're much more expensive with a multi-pattern microphone than a single pattern cardioid.
Yeah, lots of chatter in the chat about this. Mickey says, absolutely, the 4040 sounds so brittle to me. John Wallace kind of supported that. 4040 has an overhyped high end, doesn't sound as good. And then Tim McCullough said the 4050 is smoother. And if that's not an issue, then use the 4040. So they're obviously different sounding mics. Hey, that's going to take care of us for today. I didn't think we were going to have a ton of questions today, but it turned out that we had a lot come in during the course of the show, so we didn't get to all of them. If you put in questions through the standard process, then those are going to get sent back to you in your notes field, so you can look them up and bring them back for tomorrow's show. If you use the QR code, those stay persistent, so those will automatically be resubmitted into the show queue for tomorrow. So that's kind of how it always works here. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for paying any attention to us. And thanks to our major constituents, as always, to our producers, those of you who asked questions and voted on those questions and really programmed the show that way. Thank you. For our panelists who show up here and freely give away their expertise every single day and have been doing it for the thousands of shows that we have done now. Thank you, thank you, thank you, panelists. And to our amazing back-end crew, that silent army of people, not just the ones you see on the credit roll at the end here. I've said this a lot, but it's true. There's a whole small army of people who touch this show in various ways, and the back-end crew is amazing. I get to work with them a lot in planning things. It's just awesome. So thank you very much, one and all. The Tlaloc Traversal for today, if you were to have run around to get this information from people, you would have traveled 46,000 miles, 75,000 kilometers. That is, oh my gosh, there's something in the way. I think it's 368 million bananas for scale. We'll be back tomorrow doing the same thing. Thanks for watching. All righty. Thank you, gentlemen.
Another tasty
Thank
Thursday.
you.
Yeah, I thought that was another good day. Thanks to all of you.
All right, you know. Have a good day. I'm gone.